Was on the show yesterday talking about he was micro betting just like the first half of one of yesterday's games, and then of course texted me after halftime being like, see, I told you I was right.
Oh, here we go.
There you go.
They never tell you when they're wrong, though.
Still here with Richard and Matt in studio with me, and let's talk about the Lakers, who just ended a 7-game road trip last night with a win over the Hornets. Kyle Kuzma leading the way with 24 points. Dennis Schroeder added 19. LA has gone 4-3 on this trip without Anthony Davis or LeBron in the lineup. So, Matt, what have you learned about this team in this stretch without their stars?
They stayed above water, and that's what you want. Obviously, missing 2 stars, the best duo in the game. But I really like is this is going to help come playoff time. These guys are all going to be in rhythm. It's not going to take Braun long to get back in rhythm. We'll see how long it takes AD to get back in rhythm. But they're going to need that third guy, and whether it's Kuzma, whether it's Schroeder, it can be Harrell sometimes. To me, their most important aspect is being healthy, and no matter how, like I said earlier, no matter how far they slide down, if they're healthy, they're still going to be the favorites in the West.
Now, I'm going to speak directly to Laker fans, right? I'm going to speak directly to...
It normally doesn't go...
You're in LA.
I know. Be careful. No, I understand.
I got death threats for doing that.
People with head tattoos, with stuff like that. Like, look, I'm going to speak directly to Laker fans. You will not see the impact of Drummond until LeBron and AD are back.
Yes,
Don't be like, oh,
there was some panicking last night. There was some panic.
Oh, what's Drummond? And I'm like, guys, LeBron James is one of the greatest passers this game has ever seen. Drummond needs that. Yep. Anthony Davis is one of the most skilled big men that's going to allow for less than 3 people to be trying to box out Drummond. If you thought that Dwight Howard was a key part to your championship, Drummond is better. Yep. Drummond is like a younger, I don't want to say a young Dwight because Dwight was a monster, but he's like a younger Dwight Howard. So
he was the best pickup to me come deadline time, the buyout situation.
But you're not going to see that now until you've got LeBron out there on the floor, until you got Anthony Davis. So before you start getting all crazy about like Drummond's numbers, understand it'll skyrocket.
And I give him credit, by the way, because it would be easy to sort of fall into it. Well, where do I fit on this team? Okay, now what's going on? And he last night was very much like, yeah, I'm here for the defense, and the offense will come, and all of that. And it seemed kind of to have an even feel about it.
Yeah.
And Dennis Schroeder, by the way, playing as well as he had, matters for them. And there was a little bit of question after the trade deadline. It was his name that was in those talks in the swap for Kyle Lowry. The sticking point might have been Talen Horton-Tucker, but Schroeder's contract is also going to be up this summer. So that was seen as kind of an exchange for expiring versus expiring. He could have taken it personally, and instead, look at what he has been doing. I covered their game over the weekend in Brooklyn, and when he got tossed out with Kyrie, look, of course, you would say the winner is the Lakers if you're losing Schroeder and Kyrie.
At that time in the game.
But at that time in the game, he was the leading scorer.
I had a chance to talk, Chris Paul's good friends, and our kids are good friends, and we talked this offseason about how much he loves Dennis Schroeder, one of the most competitive guys on both ends of the floor, always working hard. He said he just loved playing with him, and you're seeing that over in LA. This kid works hard. You can say what you want about him. You can say what you want about the hair dye and looking like Gizmo sometimes, but this dude goes out and plays his butt off every single night, and you're going to need that going in the playoffs.
Dennis the Menace, as his teammates call him. All right, I want to shift gears and head to the college ranks for this next conference discussion by talking about that big showdown tonight. Nets Sixers, 7 Eastern on ESPN. Harden, Durant, and Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge all out tonight. The good news for Brooklyn is Kyrie is available to play after missing yesterday's game against the Wolves for attending to a family matter. As we look ahead with just over a month left in the regular season, which team do you trust more heading into the postseason, Brooklyn or Philly, Richard?
Well, I think right now you have to say Philly, mainly because Philly has had their whole team. We've seen everybody on their roster. Joel Embiid is back. Look, you have a guy like Ben Simmons who's up for Defensive Player of the Year and probably could be the leading candidate. You have Joel Embiid who was top 2, maybe top 3, at times leading for the MVP. So this team has been playing great. So you have to trust them. The Nets still have more talent. If the Nets are 100% healthy, they will be the favorites, but they have not been that. And it's been now, 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I don't think you have to pick Philly. I think Richard's just trying to bully you into picking Philly. I'm still taking Brooklyn, and the key thing is their health. Obviously, if they're healthy, but they're such a talented team, similar to an all-star team or an Olympic team, where even though you haven't been with these guys for a long time, you're so talented you can make that chemistry work. And we've been harping on their defense a lot. But if you look at it, Kyrie has been playing defense. James has been playing defense. KD plays defense. So their defense, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what their numbers are, but come playoff time, these guys are going to be ready to play. Their key is their health. But I also love what Philly's been doing and being healthy and what Doc has.
It says, who do you trust more?
I trust the Nets because they have more experience and they've been there. And that's why I don't think the seeding matters so much, because the Nets have plenty of championship experience. Philly is new to this, and if they're going to make that run, I think obviously a home court is more important for them.
I think the seeding doesn't matter as much for Brooklyn. Right. Although if they are the number 2, that means you got to face either Giannis or Embiid in the conference final. Second round of the East, yes, you know what I mean.
That also means those two guys have to face their three-headed monster.
Right,
too,
exactly. So. But I would say that for Philly, it's very important, right? Because their margin is a little bit different.
Yep.
Their home record is a little bit different, right? The balance between that is different. And I just think the confidence level they would get would be different than the Nets' confidence level.
You also think about it, if Embiid has an off night in the playoffs, most likely Philly has a good chance of losing. If KD doesn't have off nights. If Kyrie has an off night, if Harden has an off night, they can still win. You know what I mean? So it's just the Nets have a nice deck. That's all I got to say. They got a nice deck.
Must be nice. And defensively, Nick Claxton too. I don't want to forget to shout him out. I mean, he's been really what's powering their defensive effort. So, we'll see how much playing time he ends up getting in the playoffs, because they certainly have a glut of guys at that position right now. All right, with that, let's kick things off by discussing. Oh, no, we just talked about that. Keep going. We're going to move on to Jason Tatum. I was like, we're discussing the things we just discussed, but I do want to circle back to Jason Tatum, because his performance against the Blazers last night, that final dagger 3 sealed the win. And look, you just heard his lingering COVID symptoms, Matt. What do you feel about the way he has been able to ramp up his game despite that late in the season, which is a version of what he did, of course, without the COVID after the All-Star break last year?
I'm a huge fan of Jason Tatum. I think he's one of the bright stars of the game. Obviously, him and Brown have identified themselves as one of the best young trios. I think a lot has to do with just Marcus Smart's presence. I know we're talking about Jason Tatum right now. His numbers post All-Star break are 27 a game. He's at 50, 40, 90 from the field, so he's definitely stepped his game up. But although Marcus Smart's numbers aren't going to overwhelm you, although he'll drop 30 some nights, his presence on the floor is so comforting. It's almost like a security blanket for that team. And I think now that they're going to get him back in the mix, this was the team that I picked post All-Star to really kind of pick their game up. And to me, to be honest with you, with all due respect to the Hawks, outside of the Hawks, if there was no Brooklyn, I could see any of those 5-6 teams possibly making the finals, because the East is so wide open and wild and evenly matched.
Yeah, and look, this is Jason Tatum. I had the opportunity to interview Brad Stevens, and he said, look, with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, we want them, by the time they're 27, to be 2 of the best leaders.
Forget how young they are.
Yeah, we want them to be 2 of the best leaders in the NBA.
Right.
So it's not just like, oh, they're scoring. And right now, Marcus Smart is such a heartbeat for them, and he is kind of like that defensive presence you see with guys like Draymond or, back in the day, Tony Allen. It's like he just brings that intensity. But that's where they're working with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. All the talent's there. They both had All-Star games. They're 24 years old. But it's like, okay, well, where can they improve to make our team great? And it's leadership. It's every single day. It's the competitiveness. It's holding each other and other people accountable, not just the coach doing that. So I think Jason Tatum is reaching new heights, but we also have to look for not just his game, but his leadership and how that improves.
If you missed the final minutes of that game last night because it was late on the East Coast, it is worth going back and taking a look. It was really fun ending. I really loved watching Jason Tatum and Carmelo Anthony go at each other. Right? I mean, they're so much fun, and obviously the style's so similar, because Jason said after the game, is very sweet. He goes, Carmelo is one of my heroes. He's one of the guys, besides